Europe is a very old part of the world. And unfortunately, as a result, many of its ideas are very old too, sort of like me. But old ideas are good, but with new crises and new problems, we need new ideas. The most significant crisis we face, I believe, is that almost all of the challenge of Europe, jobs, financial markets, environment, terrorism, war, are cross-border, interdependent problems. Problems that affect many nations, and not just Europe, but nations beyond Europe. But the responses in Europe and other places are done one nation at a time, or in Europe at a time, just Europe. Europe has broken down the walls within Europe, but it has put new walls up against the rest of the world. There was a time we thought Turkey would be part of Europe. Now there is a wall between Turkey and Europe. We thought for a time Europe could be helpful to the Middle Eastern world, but we saw that the Arab Spring had to take place there with Europe watching. NATO helped in one place, but for the most part, Europe does nothing. In Syria, in Yemen, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, Europe does nothing. So we have this fundamental crisis today. New 21st century interdependent problems across borders and 18th century nation-state sovereign solutions based on walls. Until we find cooperation, not just within Europe, which we have begun to find, although that's in crisis also, but until we find cooperation between Europe and Africa, Europe and Latin America, Europe and Asia, it will be very difficult to meet our problems. My own new idea, if one is looking for a new idea, is to try to move away from nation states. Every international organization, the multinational corporation, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, the League of Nations before World War II, United Nations after World War II, the G9, the G20, those are all based on the nation state. And there are two reasons the nation state finds it hard to cooperate: nationality and sovereignty. Both of those are walls against cooperation. Europe has been an experiment in pooled sovereignty, but even there we see with the financial crisis how difficult it is to keep people from wanting to build those walls again. My suggestion, my new idea, which I will talk about this afternoon, is to move from nation states to cities as the building blocks of a global order. Cities are already networked. Cities face common problems everywhere. Cities are already multicultural. Cities and the mayors of cities and the citizens of cities are problem solvers. National politicians are ideologues. They're Tories or conservatives. They're socialists and liberals and neoliberals and anarchists. But in the city, you have to solve problems. You have to remove the snow. You have to move people by a good transportation system. You need jobs. You have to deal with immigrants. You can't decide whether they're there or not. That's somewhere else. They are there. So cities and mayors face similar problems everywhere. A parliament of cities, a network of cities, allows us to begin to rethink the problems of cooperation across borders. Because cities have no borders. Cities sit on rivers, oceans of transportation. They sit on the World Wide Web. Cities use culture as a connector, transportation and commerce and trade as a connector. So cities are naturally disposed to cooperation and problem solving. New idea, put aside the nation state and all its problems, and think about cities as the new network interdependent building block of a common world, and that may give us a fresh perspective on every crisis we face.